Hey guys, how you doing? My name is Lena. Welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to have like a very quick recommendations video for you because I haven't done one of these in a while. So I think it's about time. So today we're going to do like a very quick guide to fantasy. We're going to explore basic level, like beginner's level, medium, and advanced fantasy. How have I come with this list? Maybe if the book is a standalone, the magic system is soft, is a very long series, stuff like that, very complicated or more slow read. So basically stuff like that. I'm going to do like a different series with this because I have only included like 4 books in each top because I don't want this video to be like fucking overly long. So for each category we're going to just include 4 and then we're going to do like part 2, part 3 and such. So today I've decided to combine couple of my favorites in the different like levels, but without further ado, let's just get started. So let's just begin with the beginners part to fantasy. Is anyone surprised at this point? I don't think so. So the Sword of Kaigen. I was kind of hesitating between including this in this one and on medium because the magic system is a little bit more complex than the other ones that I have here, but still this book is so easy to read. It kind of drags a little bit towards the end, but I think it's very accessible to everyone. So in the Sword of Kaigen, we're going to follow the Matsuda family. We're going to follow 2 main POVs. One is Misaki, who is the mother, basically, of this family. She's really struggling because she used to be this kind of warrior, but now she's just stuck with life at home, and she has never really accept that. Misaki's part is so fucking hard. It's so cool. We're also going to follow Mamoru, who is Misaki's son, and he has always been like a really loyal subject to the empire, but now the new student has come in, he's like really struggling because maybe not everything was real. So yeah, it's great. This book is fantastic. I mean, if you haven't been here, well, you know, but still, Sword of Kaigen, one of my favorite books, if not almost my favorite book. It's amazing. I highly recommend it. It's also a standalone, so you only have to read this one, and also it's very character driven, so I think you're good to go. Then we have a new favorite book of mine. This is 7 Days of an Empire by J.R. Matthews, and I read this book in May, I believe, April, somewhere there. But I loved it. It's actually very like a soft, low fantasy book. Like honestly, the magic system is barely existent here, but it's very heavy on the politics and on how ruling an empire and succession and such. So I just love that part. It's also a dual POV, and they are very distinct POV, so you won't have any trouble with that. We're going to follow the magician who is with the body of the emperor because he basically just died, so they are escorting his body back to the capital of the empire just to fulfill the burial rites and the succession and such. And then we're also going to follow the general who is currently at the capital dealing with everything. Basically, the emperor is kind of crumbling down a little bit now that the emperor is dead, so he basically has to figure everything out. But yeah, we do have a magician, as you have heard, but still the magic is not overly explained, is kind of more in the vague side, so it's fine. It's really easy to follow, and there are some sequences here that were fantastic. It's Roman inspired, and I just love this. I cannot wait for the sequel. Like, this is so good, man. So good. Then we have here a book that is very different in tone, but this is 16 Ways to Defend a Walled City by K.J. Parker. I really like this book. It's more in the humorous side. We're basically going to follow a siege city, and this is written in kind of a diary form, and we have an unreliable narrator. It's just hilarious. Like, I just really like it. It's also filled with tragedy and engineer stuff, which I don't fully comprehend the whole time, but still really, really enjoyable. I think that this is a great entry to anyone, basically. We also just have one POV, so it's super easy to follow, and the story is just, as I've told you, hilarious, super funny. So yeah, I think anyone can basically enjoy this one. I really need to read How to Rule an Empire, which is book 2. They are all standalones also, so you only need to read this one, and you can continue if you want to. But again, you can also start with How to Rule an Empire and get away with it. Then I have here the Boneshard Daughter by Andrea Stewart, which I read a couple of months ago, and I was extremely surprised by it. for some reason, I thought this was YA. So it kind of got stuck at the back of my shelves, and I was just like, wait, I do own this book, I should read it. And I read it as a part of the book club that I'm part, basically, the Space Sirens. And I was so surprised by it. This basically takes place on an island empire, which is also super cool, and you don't really see that much stuff in fantasy. We have several POVs. This is a little bit more complex. That's why I'm putting it like in last place. It's just like leaning more towards medium fantasy, but still super easy to read, super easy to follow. And again, the magic is more towards the complex side, but it's really easy to understand. So I don't think it should be a problem for anyone. But we mainly have 3 POVs. So the first one is the Emperor's Daughter, and with her, we're basically trying to discover how the magic works, the Boneshard magic, which is super cool. It's basically kind of necromancy. You use parts of bones to kind of make these automatons come to life. It's just super cool. Super cool. Then we're going to follow this kind of bandit, and you know, it's kind of this thief with a heart of gold, and he was in an island that suddenly sunk, so he's trying to figure out what the hell happened. And then we're also going to follow a third POV about a revolution in one of the islands. It's a very complex book filled with a lot of topics actually, but still, I think it's super easy to read. It's super engaging. You can finish it in a couple of days. It's also more in the shorter side, like it has 400 pages, so not too long. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I will be reading the sequel in a couple of months, so yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, highly recommend the Boneshard Daughter. Actually, I don't think I talk about this book enough. Then let's just move towards medium level fantasy. I don't know why I'm calling it medium, but medium level. So the first pick for this one is going to be Sufficiently Advanced Magic by Andrew Rowe, because even though it's a very easy story to follow, we only have one POV basically, because the story is being told to us by Corinne. The magic system is pretty much overly explained. Like, this is very inspired by literary RPGs, meaning progressive fantasy. So you have different levels of magic and atonements and mana and different spells, use different sizes of mana. It's a little bit complex in that regard. Like, the magic system is constantly being explained, and how the atonements work and how you can modify them, especially in the later entries in the series. Also, it's going to be a pretty long series. Apparently it's 7 books long. We'll see, because they just keep getting bigger and bigger. So we'll see if maybe he might have to split a couple of books, but still. In this one, we're going to follow Corinne. In this world, we have these spires, and if you want to get like magical abilities, you have to fulfill this judgment. Basically, you're getting one of these spires, and if you made it alive, you get your magical atonement, different parts of the body. And we're going to follow, as I told you, Corinne. His brother went missing on his judgment day, and now he basically wants to find him by using all these magical abilities that he can gather. It's super cool, has a magical school setting. I love the series. My favorite series is the series that inspired the channel, obviously. But yeah, it's great. But as I've told you, it's going to be pretty long. Also, the magic system is a little bit complex, but still, I think anyone can read this and enjoy it. The humor is on point. It's super fast-paced. Highly recommend this one. Then I have here, this is a bit controversial for me, but this is The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter, which I like, but I just hate the main character so much. Like, holy shit, this dude. I think this could also be put in beginner's level, because even though the magic system is more on the kind of more complex side, it's still pretty easy to follow, and we only have one POV in the first book, if I'm correct right now. I'm doubting myself. I don't know why. But in this one, we're basically going to follow Tao, and in this world, we have 2 different types of magic, basically. We have these ladies that can basically call upon dragons and cause mayhem. And then we have these guys that can basically be stronger. And it's weird. I just hate Tao so much. But the story in itself and the magic system is so interesting in this world. Like, I'm so bad about it. But I have read book 1 and book 2. I will 100% read book 3. Tao is just annoying as hell in both. Just let me warn you about that. but still, I highly recommend this one, you know, dragons. Book 2 is actually better than book 1. In my humble opinion, is also much more fast-paced, but yeah, Tao is still so fucking boring as always, like, that dude. Then we have another new favorite of mine. This is Dreams of the Dying by Nicholas Litzo. I love this. I read this one quite recently. Also, I think it was at the beginning of the year, or even, no, it wasn't that long ago. But I just really like it. This one is dark fantasy, so careful with trigger warnings. I will link my review down below just in case. But I love this book, man. Like, this is such a perfect dark fantasy book. It also takes on the topic of dreams, which is something that I really enjoy. But basically in this one, we're going to follow Jesper Dalbarek, and he is asked to come into this empire, into this island empire again, for island empires. Basically, this great merchant has been in a coma for several days. No one has a clue what is going on, but just basically kind of as an expert, and he's trying to figure out what the hell is going on, basically. I know it's a very vague synopsis, but a lot of things happen in this book. There's a lot of trouble also. There's a lot of political talk, economic talk. It's great. I really love it. Sometimes it's a little bit on your face, but still, I really liked it. I think it's a great book. I really like it. It's a debut novel. It was fantastic, and I cannot wait for book 2. Like, I need it. But this is so long that it deserves this position. Like, it deserves to be in medium, because it's a compromise, you know? Finishing is a compromise. It has more than 800 pages. So, yeah. And probably book 2 is going to be even longer. I can sense that. So yeah, I highly recommend this one. I loved it. I will also link my review up here. Then the last one in the medium level for this guide of fantasy is going to be The Shadow of What Was Lost, the Licanus Trilogy. This is book 3 because I'm too lazy to graph book 1. But I just really like this series, though it has a lot of different magic systems, it has a lot of plot lines, and even though it's really easy to follow, I wouldn't put it in beginners, not in advanced, because it's really, you know, really easy to read, but it has a lot going on. Like, a lot going on. And all of them are chunkers, like, so they're big, but so enjoyable. So in this world, we used to have like this super powerful race ruling the ogres, but they kind of were a little bit of tyrants, and humans took over, and basically they decided to brand every single magical user with these tenets that don't allow them to hurt any human beings, even if it's to defend themselves. So we're going to follow Devin. He is in this school, and if he fails this kind of test, he is basically going to be stripped of all his magical powers and become a shadow, which is a terrible fate. But one day, Devin actually discovers that he's an ogre and he's forced to flee. I'm just going to leave it at that. A lot of things are going on also with this mysterious man that appears in the middle of a village with no memories, in the middle of a massacre. It's just great. I highly recommend this series. I think that is extremely underrated. It's just like, it reminds me a lot of Brandon Sanderson in general. So I don't know why not many people read it, honestly. But yeah, this one is great. I highly recommend The Shadow of What Was Lost. So for the advanced level, I'm just going to get Malaz out of the way. Like, this first book is so fucking confusing. Honestly, I really like book 2, but book 1, it's a little bit of a pain. Honestly, someone who loves fantasy, this was just like, why? Because it just throws you in the middle of the action, and it doesn't bother explaining you anything to you. Like, it doesn't bother even a bit. So it's really complicated. But basically, we're going to follow a bunch of different characters, but the main kind of setup in this first book is about the conquering of one of the last 3 cities for the new empress. It's just so complicated, man. I really like it, but it's just so complicated. Then I'm going to include the Moontide Quartet, because even though I don't think that the magic system is that complex, it's a pretty like convoluted story overall. The books are ginormous, like almost all of them are over 700 pages. So they're extremely long. We have a huge cast of characters. We have so many different plot lines that sometimes are not even connected at all. So it's pretty difficult. This is book 4, Ascendance Right, but book 1 is Mage's Blood. And holy shit, I love this series, don't get me wrong. I really didn't like book 3, but the rest is fantastic. So We don't care about that. But the main premise of the series is that we have these two different continents and they are basically separated by a vast ocean. But once every 12 years, we have this Leviathan bridge coming out of the ocean and connecting both continents. But they are basically deciding if they're going to war against each other once again, like in the past. It's just great, but again, we have so many different characters, man. Many great characters here. Like, if you like something like the First Law, you're probably going to really like this because everyone has their own motivations. They don't give a fuck about the rest. But yeah, I really, really like this series. I think it's also extremely, extremely underrated. Then this is not exactly right because I myself wouldn't put it in that advanced, but I understand that it's really slow and it takes a lot of brain power to go through them. It is going to be no, how is it called? It's going to be a 4-book series, basically. And they are really long, and they have, you know, a lot of circle beds, and I get that, so I'm going to include the Dandelion Dynasty. This is The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. I love this series, it's one of my favorite series of all time. I'm currently hosting a read-along for this series because book 3 is coming out in November. But The Grace of Kings, it's a very kind of intimidating series, apparently. I don't know, I understand, I was a little bit hesitant the first time that I grabbed it, but it's just so addictive. I get that if you don't like slow burn books, you might not really enjoy this because they are... Ken Liu basically takes his time with everything, and I just really like that, especially overly descriptive things. I don't mind, but I understand that for some people might be a problem, so yeah. Basically, in this one, we're going to follow the events after the Emperor's death. Mapidre, he basically unified the 7 provinces, and now that he's dead, everything is starting to crumble a little bit. So some provinces want to rebel, some provinces want to stay in the empire, and we're going to follow 2 main POVs. We're going to follow Kuni, who is a thief, a gangster, whatever you want, and he's a little bit stuck in this conflict. And then we're also going to follow Mata. He was the son of one of the lords that the emperor killed to just unify the country, and now he wants revenge, basically. It's complicated, but it's so good. Give this one a chance, please. And the last one that I'm going to include here is The Faithfull and the Fallen by John Wen, because holy shit, this series. This is book 4, Wrath, but book 1 is called Malaz. And don't get me wrong, I really like this series, but sometimes it has like such a huge cast of characters and they have so many similar names. I extremely discourage you to listen to the audiobook of this series. I'm an audiobook listener. Like, I always prefer the audiobook, but so many similar pronunciations, you're going to be lost so many times. So before getting into fully using the audiobook, I would highly recommend that you just read and listen at the same time so you can just differentiate the different names. Because if not, it's just so painful, like so painful, because it's a really good series and it's a little bit massive. It's your battle between good and evil, but the cast of characters, also the books are very long and it's not really that action packed, or at least I don't feel like it. I don't know. I have many mixed feelings with this series, even though I really like it. But basically, in the first book, you're going to follow this world. Yeah, giants used to rule, but humans came in, basically kicked them out, and now we have this prophecy saying that the bright star and the black sun are going to collide and they are going to basically decide the fate of this world. It's just super cool. It's your very classic good versus evil fantasy, but with a great twist. I have to admit, it has a great twist in the trope department. Like, so many tropes are twisted in the middle of the series. I really like that. But yeah, I highly recommend the series, but extremely careful with this one. Are also 4 books. So yeah, that's basically going to be all for this part 1 of this guide. I'm just going to separate them because I just don't want it to just make like a huge and really long video with every single fantasy book, because it's just too much. But yeah, have you read any of the series? If you have any recommendations for a series in the different levels, please just let me know down in the comments below. But as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye.